Hi everyone, welcome to a new video. As always, my name is Harmon. Today's video is all about 12-year-old Zina Linnik, who was abducted near her house and brutally murdered. We're going to get into the details, of course, of this story. And I'm here at the Oakwood Hills Cemetery. It's in Tacoma, Washington, where Zina is laid to rest. It's a very small but very beautiful cemetery. So I'm going to show you her grave after we kind of talk about what happened. So 12-year-old Zina Linnik was brutally abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered by a guy of the name of Tacoma. Now, Zina was outside in the back alleyway behind her house. It was the 4th of July, 2007. She, of course, was outside watching fireworks, as, of course, most of the United States population were doing that day. She, of course, was outside watching fireworks. And that is when Tacoma drove up in a gray van and abducted her right there behind her house. Zina, of course, screamed, and that scream actually proved to be very helpful, as her father heard her scream and he ran out and saw a partial license plate number of the van that Tacoma was driving. He was able to, of course, contact the police with the description of the van and the partial license plate. The police did some digging and they were able actually to find the entire license plate, which was registered to, again, the perpetrator, Tacoma. Now, when police brought in Adhan for questioning, he, of course, initially denied any involvement in her abduction, her sexual assault, and her murder. However, with, again, them finding the license plate that essentially tied him to the crime scene where she was abducted from, that obviously proved to be a big piece of evidence against him. So Tacoma was, of course, arrested for Zina's murder, as again they tied his van to the crime scene, charged him with Zina's sexual assault, abduction, and murder. After questioning him, he ultimately decided to make a deal with the police, and in exchange for a life sentence without the possibility of parole, he would go and show them where her body was. So Tacoma decided to take that deal, and he ultimately showed the police where her body was and received a life sentence in prison. So according to Tacoma, this is what he said on the night of July 4th, 2007. He said that he had hoped to pick up his son for a little one-on-one time. However, his son and, again, his ex-wife weren't home at the time, as he had gone there unannounced. He said that he just flew into a rage, even though it wasn't his night to have his son. And he just said that he wanted to destroy a human being. And he claimed that he was still seeing red a few hours later. That is when he spotted Zina pedaling her bike around the back of her house. He went, abducted her, threw her in the back of the van, bound her with plastic ties, and again began driving back to his house. He apparently heard her trying to make noise, and so he zip-tied her mouth shut, and by the time he got back to his house, she was already dead. So Tacoma came to the United States in the 1970s after his mother married a U.S. soldier. He was actually convicted of incest in 1990 for violently raping a 16-year-old female relative. He was sentenced to 2 months in jail and 5 years of counseling. He told the counselors that he had been sexually assaulted many times by an older brother while growing up in Thailand. And again, that gives no excuse
to what he did to poor 12-year-old Zina, let alone all these other victims that he did some terrible things to. So after serving 2 months in jail after his conviction of incest, he was classified as a level 1 sex offender, which was considered low risk. He was required to register as a sex offender. However, he did not face deportation due to his status as a legal resident. In 1992, he was convicted of intimidation with a weapon, but officials at the INS were not aware of his second conviction, and so he was allowed to stay in the United States. He should have been deported back to Thailand, where he grew up, and if he was deported, he would not have been able to murder Zina. And so I think that's what makes this case a little bit more frustrating, is the fact that this guy should not have been allowed to stay in the United States. And he should have been given a longer sentence than 2 months for his original crime of incest. He was also charged with many other sexual assaults, including 11-year-old Sabrina Rasmussen in 2000. Now, what's interesting, though, is Tacoma had become a legal United States resident and enlisted in the United States Army. He married a lady by the name of Barbara in 1986 and had 2 children. He had 2 tours of duty where he served at different forts, including Fort Lewis, Fort Dix, and one in Germany. In 1989, he moved to Western Washington here and, of course, settled in Tacoma. He separated from his wife in September of 1990 and filed for divorce in 1998. For a time, he lived with his aunt in Fort Worth, Texas. So this is why many people believe that Tacoma had something to do with Amber Hagerman's murder in 1996. And Amber Hagerman is the namesake for what is now known as the Amber Alert. Currently, Tacoma is housed in the Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla, Washington. All right, guys, I'm going to head out of here. Lots more cases to do today, but again, if you're ever in Tacoma, Washington, and you want to check out Zina's grave here, Oakwood Hills Cemetery in Tacoma. It's kind of near the office. There's a bunch of black marble type graves, and so it's kind of just in the back section over there, so not too terribly hard to find. But anyway, guys, again, if you're new around here and you like these kind of crime type videos where I actually go to these locations, make sure you subscribe and click the little bell icon next to it. See you guys on the next one.